Hey y'all, this is Amanda and welcome back to my Texas Zone 8A garden, and I'm really excited to show you all my latest project and kind of my latest obsession, and that is how to start a topiary on the cheap. Now, topiary is something that I don't have a ton of in my garden. One of the main reasons I don't have a lot of it is because it's expensive. It takes quite a while to form these beautiful shapes out of, a wide variety of shrubs. And so when I absolutely want one, I end up paying a whole lot of money for them. I got my first topiary Labor Day last year and I already killed it. Yeah, it was fine. Callaway's, they refunded my money. It was no big deal. It ended up being fine, but I killed it because it didn't have very good drainage and it ended up rotting. But I love topiary. I love it for kind of contrasting reasons. I love it for its formality and its beautiful architectural shape, but I also love it for its whimsical quality because these unique shapes are so different and contrasting compared to my garden. Now, a lot of people ask, why should I have topiary in my garden? I like my garden the way it is. That's fine, whatever works for you. Topiary is just an area where you can add some beautiful structure and architecture, and they can anchor portions of the garden for you. I really think that contrast is probably one of the most important things you can have within your garden, because if everything's the same texture, the same height, or the same colors, everything just becomes flat. And when you add unusual shapes such as this, where we're going to create more of a geometric shape as opposed to the organic shapes that we have within our garden, it creates contrast and allows the topiary to bounce off the garden around it. So therefore it puts the topiary on display and your garden on display as well. Now, topiary has been traced back to ancient times, ancient Rome in fact, during the time of Julius Caesar, and it's from the Latin word toparius. I think it's toparius. I'll put the word down below because y'all know I'm going to butcher it, but basically that's a Latin word and it means landscape gardener. So that's really kind of a cool way to think about where the origination of topiary came from and where it has evolved to today. So there are a wide variety of plants that make for really great topiary. Obviously boxwood, that's what we're going to be working with today. Arborvitae, myrtle, laurel, yew, privet, holly. There's a wide variety of shrubs that are really, really good for that. One of the main things you want to concentrate is when you're selecting any kind of shrub that you're going to be turning into topiary, you want to make sure it's a nice, healthy, strong plant. A lot of people look for a single straight stem up the center. I'm not typically worried about that because I do like a variation on topiary where it's multiple main trunks and stems. I think is really, really fun. But if you're focused on the more formal aspect of it, you want to look for a nice straight single stem up the middle of the shrub. Okay, so let's talk about the shrubs that I have today and why it's going to save us money. Okay, a couple of weeks ago I did a clearance haul from Lowe's, and in that clearance haul they had several boxwoods in there. The boxwoods are regularly $12.98. I think I ended up getting them for $7, which is a great price in and of itself. But one of the reasons I selected these is because in the middle of these plants you'll notice that it's actually multiple shrubs in one plant, which is super cool. Now, one of the things we can do is we can divide out the shrubs into individual topiaries, or we can still just leave it together and work with a topiary within that. So this particular plant I got for $7 at Lowe's. If I divide it in half, I have a topiary for $3.50 each, which is wonderful. Now, for practice sake, I'm actually going to leave this one with 2 stems. I actually already divided out a few of the smaller ones that I had. I originally had 3 smaller ones, and you see I divided them out. I took 2 of them and divided them out into sets of 4. And you can see I divided these out into single stems and went ahead and gave them a trim, and they're looking beautiful and fun and healthy already. But let me show you another option. So this option is a larger option to begin with, and I picked this guy up at Walmart. He was $23, and he's a much bigger topiary, but I chose him for the same reason. When I was looking, if you guys look, when I was looking at them, there's 2 individual shrubs within this plant. So therefore I'm getting them for about, I guess, $11.50 each. Yeah, that's about it. $11.50 each. So I was really kind of excited about that. So let me go ahead and show you how we're going to divide up these plants. Okay, I'm working inside today. You might have heard on the national news that Texas is getting a massive heat wave. I believe it's 7 to 8 days of triple digits in a row. It's going to be rough at some point. The heat index is going to feel like 124 degrees. That's a lot. And now I know there are other parts of the nation and the world that are much hotter. That's just not, so, even though it's quite hot in Texas, we're not used to that much time with that much consecutive triple digit heat. So fingers crossed that our electric grid holds out for everyone in this state. Okay, so basically I put out my planting mat. This is a mat that I reuse all the time. It has gone through a lot already. It's waterproof and I love it because I can toss it on my table and it's really great. It's linked down in my Amazon storefront if you're interested. Okay, so this is a Japanese boxwood. Now, like I said, you can do multiple types of shrubs. I just happen to be focused at boxwoods right now. I do think if I'm actually loving this whole topiary experience, and if this continues to go well, I'll probably do a series in the fall where I do alternatives to boxwood and some varieties of topiaries. But we're just going to start with this at this point. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to go ahead and take it out of its container. Looks like it has a really good, healthy root system. When looking at roots, you want to see these nice, fresh roots when you pull it out. A lot of times you can pull your plants right out of the containers at the nursery just to make sure everything's good. Now I want to bring you guys in closer as I begin to divide this. Now the tool I like best for dividing is my Hori knife. This is legit my favorite garden tool. It's linked in my Amazon storefront as well. But you guys can see, here's the two individual stems. So what I can do is kind of pull a little bit at the top and feel how loose they are, and they are not very loose. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn it on its side and I'm going to begin to work my Hori knife down through here. And I'm just kind of being gentle in the beginning with this. You are going to break some roots, but you're not going to destroy the entire system of this shrub. So we're just going to start moving through there. And then once I've kind of made an opening, then I'm going to start using my hands to kind of divide out the roots. And the Hori knife has a serrated edge. So I'm just using that to kind of work through some of the larger portions of the shrub. All right, here it comes. All right, and there we go. We've divided it into two. Awesome. Super simple, super easy. And let's go ahead. I think on this one, we're going to leave it as is, so we'll come back to that. So what we're going to want to do next is we're going to find a container that we're going to want to pot it up in. Okay, so this is an existing terracotta pot that I've had here. It's got some fresh soil from the spring in it. I'm going to go ahead and scoop a little bit of it out. Next, I'm going to go ahead and add some plant tone. And this is a slow release fertilizer. You don't have to use this variety, but just use what works best for you. I want to go ahead and make sure that I'm giving my roots a good start. And then I'm going to take my topiary over here and I'm going to transfer him in. It looks like I need to dig down the roots, dig down the soil a little bit more. I'm going to go ahead and nestle my topiary in there, making sure all my roots are tucked in, just like that. And then I'm going to begin backfilling. And I'm going a little bit at a time all around the edges. And because I have so many loose roots, I'm actually separating my fingers and kind of using it to stab the soil down in between the roots instead of just like piling it all on and then like pushing it flat. This kind of helps work through some of the roots instead. And I am making sure that I've got my topiary in the center and that he's nice and straight. Although I have been considering working on some topiary where I make it like angled, almost like bonsai. I think that'd be super fun to play around with too. Y'all let me know if I should try that out. I think that might be really cool. All right, you definitely want to still look for the flare of the shrub. You don't want to pile the soil up so high. You're looking for it when it just barely starts to flare out a little bit. So right at the bottom of the trunk of the shrub. All right, there we go. Looks good. Number one is potted up. Let's pot up this next one. Okay, so I'm going to take some of this loose soil over here, start it into the base. So I might need to go grab a bag of soil from inside. All right, let's see how well that fits in there. Yeah, that's good. All right, so we'll take our second piece of topiary, our second shrub. Okay, cool. We have our next one ready to go. And these are looking good. And like I said, I focus on having these in the center of the container. You can certainly try more whimsical shapes. I will keep an eye out for a cool shrub at a good price that might be fun to turn into some type of whimsical topiary, but this has just been fun for me, very therapeutic for me, and also really nice because everything was done on a budget. So for those clearance ones at Lowe's, I was able to do those for $3.50 each, which is amazing. And for these larger ones, I was able to do them for about, I guess, $11.50 each, which is super fun. Okay, so let's also planted up the last clearance plant. And here's the clearance plant. Now, of course, this one can be divided into two. I'm just choosing not to do that since I already tried it with the other ones. And I'm loosening up the roots some. Oh, let's get some plant tone in here. That felt like a glove. Okay, let me get this area straightened up a little bit, and then let's talk about how to shape topiary. Okay, so I actually think that the shaping of the topiary is the really fun part. And with these smaller containers, I've learned that I really like to use a lazy Susan. A lazy Susan is also what I utilize when I'm doing flower arrangement. But it allows me to put it in the center of on the center of the lazy Susan and kind of check out the shape. Now, you are wanting to cut this tight, all right? We don't want to keep all this like little loosey-goosey fluff up here. You're wanting to create a nice dense shape. That's how we get to really great topiary. So while this is like this, we're going to actually be pushing it, and I'm going to slide my fingers in all the way down to about this size right here. And from there, once we've trimmed it, it will begin to fill out even more. The more you trim it, the more it's going to send off more branches. It kind of just, it sends a message to the plant telling the plant that it's time to grow. Trimming topiary, the best time to do that is in the spring and the summer. You don't really want to do it in the fall because that's, once again, sends a message for it to send new growth. And then that growth doesn't really have enough time to harden off before winter comes, so you might get some damage on your topiary. So really kind of stick to spring and summer for your pruning. Now, another thing that's really important to think about when you're pruning topiary is it's forgiving. This is a plant. It's going to grow back. It's not the end of the world. So what I've kind of come up with when I start topiary is I really like to determine the top of my topiary. So I'm kind of coming down and I'm cutting off these top stems just like this. All right. Then I've determined this is the top of my topiary. And from there, I kind of just like to curve out at an angle, coming down. And then I like to turn it a little bit and then kind of keep going up the sides with it. And you've got some flat spots, but those will grow in, so don't stress. And I'm just coming up the side just like this. I know it's super scary looking, but it's actually incredibly therapeutic. Can I just tell y'all how fun this is? Like, go find some really cheap shrubs and turn them into topiary just for fun. I think that you'll just be surprised at how just enjoyable the whole process is. All right, so we're not doing a ton of trimming on these particular topiaries for the most part because they are they're quite small. So this is a really nice look. I'm just going for low, round, spherical shapes. And I think as they fill in, I'll be able to continue to discover more of what's going on down here. and decide if I want to take off some more and allow it to grow taller over the years. So that's my first thing with cutting one topiary, and I'm going to cut each of these so you can kind of see. Before I move it off, I am going to cover it with some rocks. You can just do gravel. You can cover it with sand, although I don't like sand as much. You can do gravel, you can do decorative rocks, you can do glass rocks, you can do seashells, you can do moss, you can do sphagnum moss, you can do a wide variety of things. I had another bag. Where it is? You can do a number of things. My gravel is from Home Depot. It's over by the fertilizers. And I like it because it has a lot of like natural colors, browns, dark browns, beiges, that kind of color tones to it. If you want a sharper, more modern look, you can do white stones, which would be really nice. Now, why am I topping my topiary? Well, for a couple of different reasons. First of all, I think it looks really nice. I think it looks nice and clean. And then secondly, it's really great for water retention. And then also, I'm not someone who deals with this, but if you're someone who deals with a lot of squirrels and such, this keeps them from digging within your topiary. So they might not be trying to bury acorns and things like that. So there's one done. Let's do another. Okay, remember this one is the one from Lowe's, and it actually has two plants in here, but I chose not to split them. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here and I'm going to start at the top, kind of determining where I want the top of my boxwood to be. And then I'm going to work down the sides. I don't really think you can take like too much off at the beginning with these, especially starting these brand new ones, because we're really trying to create dense growth. So you do want to cut them pretty tight. If you leave them too loosey-goosey, it's just going to get really airy, and that's not necessarily the goal of topiary. And I'm just using a pair of pruners. I think it's important for them to be pretty sharp, especially if you're removing any large branches of any type. Okay, so I know that looks super sad, but it's great. This will be good. And this guy will begin to fill out like this, which will be wonderful. Now this one has the two, so it'll be really fun to see if they grow up and if I can get two trunks going out, creating one ball. That might be really neat looking. Let's top this with rocks as well. And I think it's important when you're cutting on the topiary to rotate it. That's why this Lazy Susan worked really well for me when I began working with this. It just gave me the opportunity to look at it from multiple sides. And you know, once you've got your topiary going, keep a pair of pruners right by your topiary areas so that when you walk by, if you notice something, you can just go ahead and clip that off. Okay, one more. Okay, remember this one was one of the ones from Walmart where they had two. This one definitely has a very flat back, and I think that's from where the two plants were joined. But that's no problem. We're going to work through that. So once again, one of the first things you're going to do is come to the top, determine where the top of your topiary is. And like I said, y'all, don't be afraid to cut stuff back. It's okay. It will grow back. Not fast. I'm not going to grow back fast. But it will grow back. And yes, these are going to take a while to grow, a couple of years to really fill in and start looking beautiful. But that's fine with me. I don't have the funds to go ahead and buy a beautiful, you know, multi-tier topiary. But these are a fun start for me, and this works within my budget. And I love the idea that I created them with my own hand, which I think is super cool. I would really like to locate a shrub that would be fun to do for like a cone shape as opposed to like a sphere. I think that would be fun. And remember, everywhere I'm making a cut, I'm sending a message to the plant telling it to produce more growth there. And you know, it's typical, you know, wherever you make a cut, it's going to try to send off two limbs there. So it's going to make this whole situation denser. I feel like this guy feels a little boxy. Let me see if I can round that off a little bit. There you go. He feels a little more round now. Sweet. Okay, let's top this one. Okay, now we've created these topiaries. What do you do with them now? Well, these particular boxwoods can handle some shade and they can handle full sun. Because it's at the heat of the summer, I'm not going to be putting these out into full sun. I think I'm just asking for them to die at that point. They are going to be displayed on my back porch, and I'll show you guys that at the very end of this video so you can see how they look. For right now, let's talk about how we care for our topiary. So we touched on it a little bit at the beginning, but you want to do pruning on your topiary in spring and summer. We don't prune on them in the fall because every time you prune, it sends a message to the plant telling it to send more growth. We don't want to send more growth in the fall because that new growth will not have enough time to harden off prior to the winter coming around. In turn, you also want to make sure that you're fertilizing throughout the spring and summer. Do not fertilize into the fall. Once again, that's encouraging more growth. You definitely want to make sure that your topiaries, if you're going to have them in containers like this, that they have adequate drainage. You definitely don't want them sitting in, mushy, yucky soil that has no drainage. You'll be able to tell by smell. It smells terrible, but it's also going to rot all the roots on your plants, and they're not going to have a good chance of making it. I am not going to be setting mine up for drip at this moment because I'm not real sure if this is my final resting place for these topiaries. So I am going to be watering them on hand at this time during the summer, and since they are brand new, I'm going to be watering them every other day, just utilizing a watering can. All right, you all, I hope you enjoyed this video. I have loved making these. I highly encourage you, just for the fun of it, find a cheap plant, try it out, and see how it goes. It was really fun to do this, to start creating these topiaries at such a low cost for myself. That makes things a little bit easier, especially if I fail. It's really hard to go buy a beautiful $200 topiary, which I did in around Labor Day last year, and then it dies. It's pretty defeating, and I felt terrible. I feel terrible every time a plant dies. But this is kind of a really fun start, starting with the boxwoods. If you guys are interested, I will expand on this more and do some other varieties of shrubs. Just drop me a comment below. Let me know if you want me to try that out. Or if you have some great ideas for topiary, let me know what you're thinking, what works best for you, and share it with all of us. All right, you all, as always, make sure you hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you know when my latest videos are up. And make sure you check me out on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. As always, she's a mad gardener or decorator or anything else that she wants to be. Thanks, y'all.